The bronze, revolving doors of the gallery whispered open. Inside, crystal sculptures caught the afternoon light, casting rainbow fragments across white marble. The scent of jasmine and money hung thick in the air. Every painting, every installation, every piece of hand-blown glass seemed to pulse with quiet wealth. He entered slowly, his footsteps deliberate, each one landing like a threat. The attendants went rigid. Marcus Reed, the most ruthless real estate mogul in Chicago, had arrived. His charcoal suit was cut to perfection. A platinum Patek Philippe gleamed at his wrist, and his face could have been carved from granite. People who stood in his way rarely got a second chance. Those who challenged him usually disappeared from the business landscape entirely. But today, his mind wasn't on acquisitions or hostile takeovers. He had come to browse art, or at least that's what he told himself. He was adjusting his tie, preparing to examine a collection of abstract pieces when a voice floated across the gallery, warm and unhurried. "Welcome to Sage Modern Gallery," she said. He stopped breathing. The owner had emerged from her office in the back, a tall, stunning black woman with rich umber skin, goddess locks cascading past her shoulders, and a presence that somehow made the entire gallery feel intimate. Her nameplate read simply Sage. Her smile was confident, playful, and fearless. "Can I help you find something special today?" And in that instant, everything shifted. For 18 months he had lived in quiet desperation. After the helicopter crash orchestrated by his competitors, the surgeons had delivered their verdict with clinical detachment. The trauma to his spine, the nerve damage, they said he would never be capable again. His body had turned traitor, leaving him feeling hollow, diminished, less than the man he'd been. Stunning women from his social circle had tried, models and heiresses throwing themselves at him, but every encounter ended in humiliation. They always left with pity in their eyes and whispers on their lips. But now, here in this gallery, just from hearing Sage's voice, his body awakened. Fierce, undeniable, shocking. Heat flooded through him with an intensity he hadn't experienced in over a year. His manhood responded, hardening with a force that made his breath catch. Terror gripped him, his jaw locked, sweat beaded at his temples. He dropped his gaze immediately, unable to meet those kind, curious eyes. His chest constricted, not from fear but from sheer disbelief. What's happening to me? "Sir, are you all right?" Sage tilted her head, genuine concern softening her features. Her voice was gentle but steady, the kind that demanded truth. He couldn't form words, couldn't organize his thoughts. His lungs felt starved for air, as though someone had struck him in the solar plexus. Without speaking, he pivoted sharply and strode toward the exit. His driver scrambled from the car, confused as his boss brushed past without explanation. The door swung shut behind him, and just like that, he was gone. Inside, Sage blinked, bewildered. "Well, that was strange," she muttered to her assistant. "Did I say something wrong?" That night, Marcus sat in his penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, staring at the city's reflection on dark water. A tumbler of bourbon trembled in his grip. The scene played in his mind on an endless loop, her smile, her voice, the warmth in her greeting, and the shameful, glorious truth that followed. For the first time in 18 months, his body had come alive. He slammed the glass down, the crystal base cracking against granite. "This isn't real," he said to the empty room. "It's phantom sensation." Psychological. But no matter how many times he repeated that lie, he couldn't erase what he felt. 3 days crawled by. He couldn't eat. Business meetings became background noise. His executive team noticed his distraction, but nobody dared question him. Finally, desperate for answers, he called his neurologist. "You're telling me you had a physical response?" The doctor's skepticism crackled through the phone. "Yes." His tone was sharp, defensive. "Mr. Reed, your scans are definitive. Based on your injuries, this isn't medically possible. It must be psychosomatic, a phantom sensation, nothing more." But Marcus knew what he'd experienced. The fire had been too real, too consuming. He leaned back in his leather chair, pressing his palms against his temples. Delusional, perhaps, but he couldn't deny the truth. He needed to see her again. No, he had to. The following week, he found himself back at Sage Modern Gallery. This time he came without his driver, without his assistant, a business titan walking alone into unfamiliar territory. That was unthinkable. But for once, propriety didn't matter. The door chimed softly, and again her voice reached him. "You came back." Sage's lips curved into an amused smile. She wore a fitted burgundy dress that highlighted her curves, and her eyes danced with curiosity. I didn't think Marcus Reed was the art-collecting type. He went rigid, his pulse hammering. The same thing happened again. His body stirred uncontrollably at just the sound of her speaking. Heat flooded his face, actually flooded his face, and he quickly grabbed a small sculpture from the nearest pedestal. "I'll take this," he muttered, avoiding her gaze. Her laughter rang out, rich and genuine. "Are you sure? That piece is part of a matched set, unless you're planning to give it to one of your socialites as a gift." His ears burned. He grabbed the companion piece, then another sculpture, then a painting, purchasing them all without checking the prices. Sage leaned against the counter, resting her chin in her hand. "You know, most collectors spend time examining the pieces. They ask about the artists, the technique, the provenance. They certainly don't come alone, and definitely not someone like you. Why is Chicago's most feared businessman suddenly making frequent visits to my gallery?" The boldness of her question stole his breath. Nobody spoke to him like that. Nobody. And yet instead of anger, he felt something else, something he hadn't experienced in years. He felt human. That night, as he arranged sculptures in his penthouse that he didn't need and hadn't really wanted, his staff exchanged confused glances, but Marcus ignored them. His mind, his heart, his awakened body, everything was caught in her gravity. Her voice, her smile, her directness. For the first time in years, Marcus Reed, the ruthless real estate mogul of Chicago, felt powerless. And he didn't hate it. The next morning, Chicago's financial district thrummed with ambition. Suited executives rushed past coffee shops, and trading floors buzzed with urgent voices. Inside the marble and steel tower of Reed Enterprises, however, tension hung heavy. Marcus sat at the head of an ebony conference table, his board members arranged around him. They were discussing development projects, zoning disputes, and investor concerns, but Marcus barely registered a word. Instead, his mind kept drifting back to the gallery, to her, to Sage's teasing grin, the intelligence in her eyes. "Mr. Reed, should we proceed with the River North acquisition?" one of his VPs asked carefully. "Handle it however you see fit," Marcus said absently, waving his hand. Every person at the table froze. The boss never delegated like that. Usually his word was final, precise, calculated, absolute. Today he was distant, soft, and that alone was alarming. By afternoon, he'd made his decision. Without explanation, Marcus dismissed his driver and slid behind the wheel of his Aston Martin alone. No security detail, no executive assistant, just him. The city parted before him as the mogul cruised through Chicago, his expression unreadable but his heart racing. When the gallery door opened once more, the chime sounded almost knowing. Sage was there in an elegant cream pantsuit that made her glow, her locks swept into an intricate updo. She looked up, spotted him, and her smile widened. "Well, well," she said, her voice warm but playful. "If it isn't Mr. Mysterious himself, back again, you know people will start thinking you're trying to buy me out." Marcus froze mid-step. His body betrayed him instantly, coming alive at her words. He cursed silently, fighting to maintain composure. His jaw clenched as he walked toward a display of photographs. Sage followed, her heels clicking softly on polished concrete. "What's wrong? Lost your voice? Or are you here to clean out my inventory again?" He said nothing. Instead, he selected a framed photograph, then another, stacking them awkwardly. Sage folded her arms, amusement lighting her face. "You do realize powerful men usually intimidate gallery owners, not panic buy their way through the collection." That word, panic, made his shoulders tense. For a moment, his old self, the ruthless executive, almost surfaced. But when he looked up and met her eyes, the hardness melted into something softer. Sage moved closer, lowering her voice. "What's the real story? Why do you keep visiting me? And why always alone?" Marcus's throat tightened. No one questioned him like this. Not his board, not his competitors, not even federal regulators. But this woman, this gallery owner, spoke to him as though he were simply a man. Not a titan, not a threat, not untouchable. Just a man. For the first time in years, he felt exposed under someone's gaze. He swallowed and forced his voice steady. "Do I need permission to appreciate art?" Sage tilted her head, grinning. "No, but you don't strike me as the kind of man who buys half a dozen pieces without asking a single question about them. Either you have terrible taste, or there's something else going on." Her boldness both unsettled and thrilled him. He turned sharply, walking to the counter and setting down the photographs. Wrap them all. Of course, boss, she teased, her eyes gleaming as she began packaging them. The way she said boss, not in deference but in mockery, made him bite the inside of his cheek to suppress a smile. Meanwhile, across the street, a black sedan sat with tinted windows. Inside, representatives from a rival development firm watched with growing interest. "Why does Reed keep coming here?" one muttered. "He's always alone. No security, no entourage. It's completely out of character." "Maybe the boss has found a weakness," another replied. Their eyes narrowed. In the world of high-stakes real estate, rumors were currency, and the idea of Marcus Reed showing vulnerability at a public gallery, that was something competitors could exploit. Back inside, Sage handed him the wrapped packages. "There you go, mystery man, a collection you'll probably never hang." To her surprise, Marcus chuckled softly, almost shyly. The sound startled even him. He hadn't laughed like that in years. "You're bold," he said, finally holding her gaze. "And you're peculiar," she shot back with a grin, "but at least you support local artists." For a moment their eyes locked. The air thickened, charged with something neither could name. Marcus's heart pounded, his chest heavy with longing and confusion. Then his phone buzzed, a text from his head of security. Competitors spotted nearby. Stay alert. He clenched his jaw, grabbed the packages, and turned toward the door. Sage called after him, her voice light but laced with genuine curiosity. "See you soon, boss. Don't be a stranger." The words hit him like a physical blow. See you soon. As he stepped into the afternoon sun, Marcus knew one thing with absolute certainty. He couldn't stay away. That night he stood at his penthouse windows, watching the city burn with light. He should have been reviewing contracts, outmaneuvering rivals, expanding his empire. Instead, he thought of Sage. The way she challenged him, the way she wasn't intimidated, the way his body obeyed her voice like an instinct. And for the first time in years, Marcus Reed, the ruthless real estate mogul, admitted something to himself. "I want her. Not for status, not for ego, but for himself." Raw, desperate, and undeniably real. The Chicago skyline glittered against the night, but Marcus's penthouse was silent. He sat alone in his study. The city sprawling before him like an empire he no longer cared to command. Stacks of contracts and acquisition proposals lay untouched on his desk. His mind kept circling back to one thing. One woman. Sage. Her laugh, her fearlessness, the way she looked at him like he wasn't a corporate predator or a legend, but just a man. A man who could be flustered, a man who could stumble. And worse, she was the only one who made him feel truly alive. By morning, he was already behind the wheel of his Aston Martin, headed back to Sage Modern Gallery. He hated how much he craved this, hated the desperation coursing through him. But he also couldn't fight it. The gallery door chimed as he entered. Sage stood near a new installation, adjusting the lighting. Today she wore a deep emerald wrap dress that accentuated every curve. She looked up, her lips already forming that knowing smile. "Well, look who it is," she said smoothly. "The man with more art than wall space." Marcus froze, as always. The moment she spoke, his body betrayed him instantly. Heat surged through him, his pulse accelerating. He gripped the edge of a display case to steady himself, forcing his expression to remain neutral. Sage tilted her head, studying him with open curiosity. "You know, Mr. Reed, I've been thinking, either you genuinely love this gallery or you're running from something." He finally met her gaze, dark eyes intense. "And what do you think I'm running from?" Her smile deepened. "Yourself." The word pierced through him. For a heartbeat, he forgot to breathe. Sage laughed softly, breaking the weighted silence. "Relax, I'm only speculating. But seriously, what's going on? You never bring anyone with you, never ask for recommendations. You just buy pieces like it's therapy." Marcus's jaw tightened. If only she understood. If only she knew how much power she unknowingly held over him. Instead of answering, he gestured toward a bronze sculpture. "This one," he said quietly. Sage came closer, near enough that her perfume wrapped around him like warm honey. She reached for the sculpture tag, her fingers brushing his wrist. He flinched. Her eyes flicked up, sharp and amused. "Are you nervous?" "No." The lie felt obvious even to him. "Yes, you are," she teased. "The great Marcus Reed, nervous in front of a gallery owner. If people knew this side of you, the business world would implode." His lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. For once he didn't feel like destroying someone who mocked him, for once he wanted to hear more. Outside, across the street, the black sedan returned. Rival eyes watched through darkened glass, their suspicion sharpening with each visit. "He's here again," one whispered. "Still alone. This woman must mean something. If she does, she's his weakness, and weakness is leverage." Back inside, Sage carried the sculpture to her desk. "So tell me something," she said casually, wrapping the piece in tissue. "Why does a man like you, famous, powerful, wealthy, keep coming back here?" He opened his mouth, but no words formed. The truth clawed at his throat. "Because you woke me from the dead. Because I thought I was finished until you spoke to me. Because I can't stop imagining your smile, your voice, your touch." Instead he muttered, "I appreciate your collection." Sage rolled her eyes. "Right." She leaned forward across the desk, lowering her voice to nearly a whisper. "You know, if you keep buying everything in here, I might start thinking you're trying to impress someone." The air thickened instantly. Her words struck deep, stirring images he couldn't control. Her in his arms, his mouth on hers, her voice breaking with pleasure. His throat constricted, his body burning, his heart racing like a man facing execution. He clenched his fists. Not here, not now. That evening Marcus's head of security finally confronted him. "Sir," the man said carefully, "the competitors are talking. They say you've been distracted, that you're spending unusual amounts of time at an art gallery." Marcus's gaze snapped up, sharp as broken glass. "And?" The security chief hesitated, tension in his shoulders. "They're saying you've developed a weakness, that a woman has your attention." The room went deathly quiet. Marcus rose from his chair, his presence suffocating. "Do they believe a woman can dismantle me?" His security chief bowed his head quickly. "Of course not, sir, but people are watching. If she matters to you, she's vulnerable." The words landed like a punch. He dismissed the man with a gesture, but the thought haunted him through the night. Vulnerability for Sage, the one person who had reminded him what it felt like to be whole. 3 nights later, he returned to the gallery after closing. The city was quiet, streetlights casting long shadows. He knocked softly on the glass door. Sage appeared inside, surprised but smiling when she recognized him. She unlocked the entrance. "You again! Do you ever rest?" He stepped in, his presence filling the intimate space. This time there were no other patrons, no distractions, no barriers, just him and her. "I needed to see you," he said finally, his voice low and rough. Her playful expression faded into something gentler. She studied him, seeing the weight behind his simple words. "Then sit," she said quietly, gesturing toward a velvet bench. For the first time in his life, the ruthless real estate mogul obeyed without question. The city was restless that night. Rain hammered Chicago in violent sheets, the streets slick with water and reflected neon. Somewhere in the darkness, shadows moved. Rival firms who had been waiting, watching. Marcus Reed had made himself predictable. Every few days he was seen slipping into the gallery alone, without security, without protection. For the first time in years, the untouchable mogul had a pattern, and patterns could be weaponized. The attack came without warning. Marcus had just left Sage Modern Gallery, carrying wrapped artwork he didn't really want, when the black SUV screeched around the corner. 4 masked figures emerged like predators, one brandishing a steel pipe, another pulling a blade. He reacted on pure instinct, honed from years of surviving hostile boardrooms and worse. Dropping the packages, he landed a brutal punch that sent the first attacker sprawling. But there were too many. The blade slashed across his ribs, white-hot pain tearing through him. He fought like a cornered animal, his fury making him dangerous even wounded. Blood soaked through his shirt as he landed another strike. A car horn blared nearby, headlights flooding the scene. The attackers scattered like roaches, vanishing into the rain-soaked night. Instead of calling for help, instead of returning to his secure building, Marcus did something unthinkable for a man in his position. He staggered back toward the gallery. By the time he reached the glass doors, Sage was inside reviewing inventory for tomorrow. She gasped at the sight of him, drenched, bleeding, his expensive shirt clinging to his body. "Marcus!" Her voice cut through the rain with panic. She rushed forward, unlocking the door and pulling him inside. "My God, what happened?" "It's nothing," he said through gritted teeth, his voice strained. "Just a scratch." She glared at him. "A scratch? You're bleeding all over my floor." He collapsed onto the velvet bench, his breathing shallow. The feared business titan who intimidated Chicago now sat slumped like a wounded man stripped of armor. Sage's heart hammered. She grabbed her emergency kit from the back office, hands shaking but movements decisive. "Take off your shirt," she commanded. He managed a faint smirk through the pain. "You're direct." "Don't test me right now," she snapped. "Do it." Slowly he complied, peeling off the blood-soaked fabric. Sage's eyes widened at what she saw. Old scars crisscrossing his torso, fresh wounds from tonight's assault. His body was powerful, sculpted, but marked by survival. She cleaned the gash along his ribs, pressing the cloth firmly. He hissed, muscles tensing, jaw locked tight. "Hold still," she murmured, her tone softening despite herself. "You act invincible, but you bleed like everyone else." For a moment, their eyes met. The distance between them collapsed, heavy with unspoken truth. "Why didn't you call your security team?" she asked quietly. "Why come here?" He swallowed hard, his gaze burning into hers. "Because I trust you." Her breath caught. The words were simple, but they carried an impossible weight. As she bandaged his wound, the air grew electric. His body was so close, his breath warm against her skin. Her hands lingered on his chest longer than necessary, tracing the scars as though reading the story of his survival. "You're insane," she whispered, shaking her head. "A business mogul showing up bleeding at a woman's gallery. Do you want to get me killed?" His lips curved slightly, half smile, half grimace. "If they come for you, I'll destroy them." Something inside Sage shifted. This man was dangerous, damaged, unpredictable. But in his vulnerability, she saw something genuine, something no amount of wealth or power could manufacture. Her fingers brushed against his, and the spark was unmistakable. Marcus leaned in slowly, his usual confidence stripped away. For once there was no facade, no ruthless exterior. Just a man craving something he thought he'd lost forever. Their lips met, tentative at first, then deeper, hungrier. Sage gasped against him, her heart racing as his hand cupped the back of her neck, pulling her closer. The kiss was desperate, a dam breaking after years of drought. He kissed her like a man starving, like the world might collapse if he didn't taste her. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Sage's eyes were wide. "What was that?" she whispered. His gaze burned into hers, dark and raw. The truth. Outside in the shadows, unseen eyes watched the gallery through rain-streaked glass. A rival's voice whispered into a phone. "He went to her. He's bleeding. He trusts her." A pause. "This is his weakness." And with those words, Sage's safety was compromised. The city beyond the windows sparkled like scattered diamonds across velvet. High-rises glowed with warmth, traffic hummed far below. But in Marcus Reed's penthouse, time seemed suspended. Sage stood by the floor-to-ceiling glass, her reflection shimmering against the lights. She wore a simple silk slip dress he'd bought her the week before, but on her it looked crafted for royalty. Her locks fell in soft waves, framing her face, and the gentle smile she offered him was enough to strip every layer of armor from his chest. Marcus leaned against the back of the sofa, his heartbeat erratic. For days he had imagined this moment, feared it, yearned for it, prepared himself for it. The accident, the surgeries, the humiliations from specialists and failed encounters with women from his world had carved deep wounds inside him. Yet here she stood, this woman named Sage, shattering every limitation of his broken body and igniting a fire that had burned cold for too long. "Sage," he whispered, almost afraid of his own voice. "I don't know how to approach this gently." Sage turned, raising one eyebrow, her lips curving into that teasing smile. "And here I thought Marcus Reed always had a plan." He laughed nervously, running his hand over his face. "Not with you. With you I feel like I'm going to lose control." "Then lose it," she said simply, stepping toward him, her bare feet silent on the hardwood. "I'm not afraid of you." That was all it took. He reached for her hand, pulled her against him, and kissed her like he'd been deprived his entire life. His lips found hers with fierce desperation, full of hunger that had been buried in silence for 18 months. Sage gasped into the kiss, her hands gripping his shoulders, feeling the raw power trembling inside him. He lifted her effortlessly, carrying her to the sofa as though she were the most precious thing he'd ever held. When their bodies connected, he moved like a man possessed, not clumsy, not uncertain, but burning with an intensity she had never known. It wasn't just physical. It was vindication, proof to himself that he was still alive, proof that the crash hadn't stolen his essence, proof that with her he was complete. Sage could barely catch her breath under the waves of passion he poured into her. He kissed every inch of her like he was committing her to memory. His hands moved with a mixture of worship and urgency, as if each touch could erase the years of self-doubt inside him. "Sage," he whispered hoarsely against her throat. "You don't understand. This feels like the world is ending. Like if I don't give you everything right now, I'll cease to exist." Her heart twisted at the raw honesty in his voice. She cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes, those dark eyes glistening with tears he was too proud to release. "Then live like the world is ending," she said, her voice soft but commanding. And he did. Marcus moved with a hunger that made Sage's body tremble. He was both tender and fierce, romantic yet primal. Every movement, every kiss, every touch declaring, "I'm alive because of you." Hours dissolved, but it felt like one endless, sacred moment. When finally they collapsed into each other's arms, breathless and shaking, he buried his face against her chest like someone seeking sanctuary. His powerful frame shook, not from exhaustion, but from overwhelming relief at being liberated. Liberated from shame, from fear, from isolation. "I thought I was broken," he confessed, voice muffled against her skin. "All those nights I believed I was half a person." He pulled back, staring at her with a mixture of wonder and disbelief. "And then you gave me back everything, Sage. You healed me." Her eyes softened. She ran her fingers through his disheveled hair, smiling at the man who hours ago had seemed so untouchable, so formidable to the world. To her, he was simply human, exposed, vulnerable, and hers. "Maybe you were never broken," she whispered. "Maybe you were just waiting for the right woman." That struck him harder than any business loss ever had. He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring every ounce of sweetness her lips offered. From that night forward, he understood that Sage wasn't just another relationship. She was his restoration, his miracle, his salvation wrapped in silk and courage. And for Sage, the shock of his passion that night left her stunned. She had never been held with such desperate romance, such all-consuming intensity, as though he was writing his soul across her skin. She realized she wasn't just helping him reclaim his strength. She was falling into something far deeper than she'd ever imagined possible. For the first time in his calculating, ruthless life, Marcus whispered words he never thought he'd speak. "Don't leave me, ever." And for the first time in hers, Sage answered without hesitation. "I'm not going anywhere." The city beyond kept glittering, oblivious to the transformation inside the penthouse. But in that room, under the glow of amber light, the real estate mogul and the gallery owner sealed something more powerful than any contract, more dangerous than any rivalry, and more unbreakable than any scar. Love that was raw, unstoppable, and burning as if the world truly was ending. In this story, we discover that no matter how broken you believe you are, the right love can make you whole again.